away. Carlos, because we know that what you really want is to be a flaneur. I know Joseph Gordon-Levitt said it first, and then you were like, but that's what I want to be, a
He's just
flaneur.
he's just way better at it because he's rich, and gets a lot of residuals, like a
I hope
flaneur.
so, because I feel like he might constantly be making art with it and paying his artist friends to make more art too.
Yeah, I mean, actually, he and his brother had started like a little collective where they were paying artists and like just encourage all sorts of great kinds of creativity. I like that. I like that Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He's a good kid.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what a flaneur is, I too want to be a flaneur. But of course, the connotation is like a care for nothing Parisian layabout kind of thing. But that also
Absolutely.
sounds pretty good. But a care for nothing Parisian layabout who pays his artist friends to make art, that's even cooler.
Yeah, I have a feeling he's more of the patron, as opposed to the flaneur. The flaneur is really much more hedonistic, self-interested, the type to, dip a turtle in gold to see how long it will live and crawl around its carpet, that sort of thing.
I
Oh
have
my
to read that
God.
book so much. What is the Krista? This book is called The Something Man. What's it called? The
Well,
Impossible Man?
no, no, no. This one is Huisman. It's translated a couple of different ways, but the volume I have is called Against Nature, and it's basically supposed to be like
Oh,
the total aesthete, And so, like, this is a guy who's totally helpless at life and is the vitiated end of his line, and so,
and
you
he's
know.
dipped his turtle in gold because he thinks it should be gilded.
Well, yeah, the room was missing something, so he wanted
Oh,
something mobile, and so he's like, "Oh, if I dip a tortoise in gold, that will give the room just that je ne sais quoi."
Carlos has always loved this scene. I forgot it was for Against Nature. He described it to me, and he took his paperback out and gave it to me. And I've read the first chapter, and it's really good and funny and like awful. And I'd like to keep reading it, but I only know that much of it. And then later we were listening to a podcast. Um, uh, it was one of the not another D&D. No, it wasn't that one. It was another one. It was a Cthulhu podcast, right?
Yeah, yeah. Push the roll with Ross Bryant.
Ross Bryant's Push the Roll. And Ross Bryant is exactly the sort of person who would have read Against Nature. And he makes a reference to that gilded tortoise.
oh my
And we were
God.
like, we know where that's from. But it was as out of the air as that. Okay, we have an audience. Hello, the chat. Hi. Yay.
Hi, everybody.
Okay. We are, it's just our voices now, but very
Oh,
soon it'll be our faces.
yeah. I will make that transition. Krista, you ready to make a spooky face at everybody? Here we go.
Yes, very.
Yes.
Three,
Chris is ready.
two, one. Spooky face.
Ooh,
Ah, welcome everyone to Fiction Impossible episode something. We have with us the star, the dark star of our galaxy, Christa Carmen, queen of haunting, lady of darkness, beautiful and perilous as the midnight. Yes, very spooky. We love her. We've known her for many years. We were thinking, was it 10, Krista? Did we meet you in 2015 or 2016 in Westerly?
I think
I
it
think
was.
2015. What year did the Savoy open?
It was 2015.
So then 2015.
Ah,
It's crazy.
2015. And Krista found us through a mutual friend, Alyssa, and she was like, "Hi, writer friends. I too am a writer. Let's talk about writing." So we got together at Perks and Corks, which is this great, like, cafe by day, music bar by night. Very, like, I don't know, that sort of red velvet drapery, tassels, mirrors, that sort of vibe. Anyway, I love it. Make an excellent chai tea, and later, an excellent chai teeny if you like that sort of thing. But really, just the regular chai tea is really good. And then we were just chatting, and we've been friends ever since. Right,
True.
Kristen?
It's true. All of it's true. The meeting, the chai tea. Yeah, God, 10, I mean it seems 10 years ago, but also seems like it could have been maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah. Well, COVID also like just cuts the middle of the timeline out, and then it's sort of like, what is? Ah.
Yeah.
I'm going to read you the official Christa Carmen biography, however, the chat. You probably already know it, but that's okay. It's for posterity.
Yeah. I'll beatbox in the background.
Okay. Christa Carmen lives in Rhode Island. She is the Bram Stoker. Now, I have a brother who is a rapper, but I am not the rapper in the family. I do.
You had that.
I love that you said so. So polite, so polite. Christa Carmen lives in Rhode Island. She is the Bram Stoker Award winning and 2-time Shirley Jackson Award nominated author of The Daughters of Block Island, Beneath the Poet's House, and How to Fake a Haunting, as well as the indie horror book award winning Something Borrowed, Something Bloodstoked, the Bram Stoker nominated Through the Looking Glass and Straight into Hell, Orphans of Bliss, Tales of Addiction Horror, and co-editor of the Aurealis Award-nominated We Are Providence and the Australasian Shadows and Ditmar Award-nominated Monster in the Mills. She has a bachelor's from the University of Pennsylvania, an MA from Boston College, and an MFA from the University of Southern Maine. When she's not writing, she keeps chickens. I just have to tell you, she keeps chickens, and she has so many good stories about their cloacas. She keeps chickens, uses a Ouija board to ghost hug her dear departed beagle. Oh, I knew that beagle. And sets out on adventures with her husband, daughter, and bloodhound golden retriever mix, Mirabelle, who's there, right there on the couch. Hi, Mirabelle.
Hello, Mirabelle.
Most of her work comes from gazing upon the ghosts of the past or else into the dark corners of nature, those places where whorls of bark become owl eyes and deer step through tunnels of hanging leaves and creeping briars only to disappear. Welcome, Christa Carmen!
Welcome, Christa.
Thank you both so
All right,
much for
first
having me.
question. So you use a Ouija board to talk to your dearly departed little pupper by yourself? Like, do you put your fingers on the planchette and let the magic happen?
So I feel like maybe so like, that's a great question. Nobody in all the years that's been my bio has ever actually questioned me on the specifics. So,
I'm sorry. Oh, this is a
No,
tough interview.
it's amazing. I'm quite pleased. Because like I feel like that could be a line that like just sounded good and does like isn't actually true. And I guess it's not. Let me explain.
Yeah.
Up here, you can't really. I don't want to like keep moving my camera, but so up there on that shelf,
Uh-huh.
I feel like if I move it too far, things will just get crazy and everyone will get dizzy. But there is like a little altar to my dear departed beagle, and I have like her ashes up there and some lovely photos, and um that's also where I keep my Ouija boards, plural. I think you guys know, obviously you know John, my husband, but I think you know that John is not the biggest fan of Ouija boards. So I don't really use them in the house, but I keep them on Maya's altar. And every once in a while when I'm up there, just sort of dusting around, I'm just like, Maya, bark once if you. No. I mean, they're up there. Maybe
You're just letting the board soak in her beautiful doggy magic.
Yeah. I feel like it's a good spot to keep both of those
I actually didn't
things.
know about this. So John's a little spooked out by Ouija boards?
Yeah, I think the way he describes it is like, he loves horror and spooky things. We got married at the Stanley Hotel. We go to spooky places all the time. His thought process is his thought process is actually exactly the same as mine. We just have different like end results from that thought process, which is that like if there were to be a spirit realm, if there were to be ghosts in a house, like a Ouija board does kind of seem like a pretty legit way to access that. And I'm also like, yeah, right, exactly, same. But then my takeaway is like, let's put them on every surface. And his takeaway is like, maybe let's not mess with that because, why do we want to invite that bad mojo in here? The potential bad mojo. Like,
it's your dog. What could possibly go wrong?
Right, but like if something else, that's like every horror movie with a Ouija board in it is like, we invited in her late mother that she missed dearly, but instead came the dark shadow attached to her.
Right.
That
could be the premise of your next book, which you're probably already writing, actually. What's your next book after that? There could be a Ouija board, for sure.
Fair enough.
By the way, for your current book, How to Fake a Haunting, I love the cover. Look how cool it is. I have it up for everybody to see. Oh, and by the way, if I still sound muffled, please let me know. And Claire is putting it up to her beautiful
Reveal
face
yourself.
now. but
Reveal
No, it's
yourself.
like a Ouija board. It's like, oh, look at
Oh,
her
there it
hands
is.
there. Hello.
How to fake a haunting. Isn't it pretty? But if I go like this, it gets all ghosty
It
woasty.
does,
But
and the hand is like candle, candle, candle.
Can you tell us a little bit about the writing process of this one? Was this an easy book? Was this a difficult?
Oh, are we interviewing her first this time? She's not going to read first?
Oh no, just a little quick question.
Yeah, okay. Talk about it, Christa. Tell them everything. The people.
I hated writing this book. I shouldn't say I hated it. I always loved writing, but like for some reason this was like quite torturous. I don't know if it was I've talked about this a few times at like events and stuff, and I mean, as far as I can tell, I think what I did was originally I was somebody that wrote all my books out by longhand first, and that process worked very well for me. And then it time-wise, like I think it was like when I had a child and I like had even less time than I had before, I kind of taught myself to cut that step out if need be. It's still like my preferred way to go. Um, and it's been that way for pretty while. I think I wrote Daughters of Black Island and Beneath the Poet's House with the first draft being typed. I don't think I don't have notebooks of like those books. Um, and it worked out fine. But I think part of my brain has been like rejecting doing it that way ever since. And I kind of walked into it with this book where my brain was just like revolting. And I was writing the first draft on the computer, but I wasn't just writing the first draft. I was like constantly editing and like messing and fussing. And so it was very just time consuming and laborious. And I would get like 5 steps forward and then have to go 8 steps back, and then get 10 steps forward and I have to go like 11 steps. It always felt like there was no rhyme or reason to like the direction that I was going in. I was going forward. No, now we're going back. Now we're going a little more forward. Oh, we're going back. And that just was not fun to me. So I am writing a new book right now. I won't say too much about it, but I wrote the whole thing, mostly the whole thing, out by hand. And already the second draft rewrite, like edits that I'm doing now, are just so much like the whole thing has just been smoother. I'm saying it's still like, it's writing a book. It's not like it's a piece of
But
cake
it's so
to do
much
it.
more sensual and pleasurable. There's something that's so satisfying about being able to handwrite. Like you gave that gift to yourself. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I have, let's see, I just organized my desk so I like, it's like.
Oh, it's so pretty.
Yeah.
Do you write on lined or unlined paper?
Oh, it has to be lined. I will write, I'm the most diagonal writer ever. I just write right off the page.
I don't care how diagonal my writing is. Not having lines is so freeing to me. Carlos got me this tome that is like this, this thick and this big and like the size, I don't know, of one of those enormous, ginormous, like illuminated manuscripts, and it's like bound beautifully, and it's taken me years and years, but I'm now 3/4 of the way through it.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah,
every unlined notebook I own is empty. Every unlined notebook I own has not a single word in it, and every lined notebook is practically full.
We should make an exchange next time. Do all my lined notebooks, and voila.
Oh yeah,
I said I'll make an exception for college ruled spiral notebooks. I love those lines I can write on. Yeah.
Those are a little wider. I feel like they're wider, right? Aren't they a little? Yeah.
Oh, I thought college ruled was a little thinner.
College ruled?
Or was it narrower?
Yeah.
College ruled's a little thinner, and the pages are kind of longer. I like them. Anyway, to each her own. Yeah. So how long did it take you? Because it feels like you had a book out every year for the last 3 years.
So that was also part of the problem, is that I brought my publisher a totally different book that was 50,000 words written, and they were not into it. And so they wanted to keep me on the same deadline, but with an entirely new book. So I also had to do the messiness like more quickly than I would have liked to. Yeah.
It's reading really beautifully so far. Oh, and now I want to just talk to you about the book, but first maybe we'll have you read a minute, and then I will ask you the questions that have been occurring to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So about 10 minutes is okay?
We'd love that.
Okay.
Our Lady Jack says, that sounds like an exasperating process on the chat. It does.
Yes.
And Christy, you were saying before we signed on that, so sometimes my friend Patty and I write really, really early in the morning, and Krista would join us sometimes as she was finishing this book. It's fairly brutal.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I mean, it's like it is those more difficult things that are a bit sweet. Like it was all the sweeter when I finished it because it was so difficult, but it really was not. There were some like 2 a.m. nights where I was just like, I want to burn my computer to ash.
That's
um,
a very good, Dark Empress thing to feel. So I
Yeah.
feel like you deserve that. But I would prefer you to have just like 2 years of a sweet experience and then some frustration at the end versus 2 years of frustration and then some sweetness at the end. Like personally, quality of life wise.
yes, I am taking like I unless something really crazy happens, I'm not going to have a novel out next year, which at first I was sort of like, "Oh my God, I'm not gonna," and then I was like, "All right, pump the brakes, weirdo. Like you book 3 books out in 3 years, you're allowed to take a year off." Um,
And it's not like you're not writing in that year because you're still writing another novel.
right, exactly. And if there were ever a novel to need an extra bit of time to breathe, it's this one. Um, Again, it's not like a difficult thing to write. It's going really, really well, but it'll be my first novel not set in Rhode Island, and it's actually set in London, Geneva, and Rome. So it's like I'm taking
Oh,
a lot of time with the research and like
are you
letting
gonna
things.
take a little tour on the continent?
I would love to. I don't know. We'll have to see how like next year goes. We'll see.
Excellent. Oh, that's so exciting. And your 50,000 word novel, which was a historic novel, if I remember correctly, historic horror. Is that going to languish, or are you going to return to it and try to sell it later?
I don't know. I have a bit of a like problem returning. I don't know. I sort of tend to lose my passion for something once I leave it, which is a bit sad. I mean, like my mom, as mothers do, right? Like I'm very much convinced that this is just mom isms coming out, but she still tells me like you should rework that novel that you wrote 12 years ago, the very first one you ever wrote. I
Oh.
loved that novel, and I was like, you're very cute, but no, I don't want to rework
But
that novel.
but it's Mercy Brown. Is that what I'm remembering?
No, the 12-year ago novel was like I think I might have you probably read parts of it. It was called Sequela Manor, and it was set in the 100 Mile Wilderness in Maine, and it was
Ah,
like a gothic building that was like it housed like an addiction treatment center. But it was so goofy. Like the twist was essentially I actually thought about this recently and I was cracking myself up laughing because essentially like the villain is basically like at the end practically like taking a fake mustache off. Like it was like the villain was like in plain sight the whole time but just looked different because he was thinner and full of grief, and I was like, wow, that was really not that cool.
I just think it's so sweet. Scooby Doo, Juvenilia. I love it. I mean, also, I have a big problem mocking my own Juvenilia because I'm still very sensitive to it and very fond of it. Not that it could ever be useful, but I have trouble even like opening a file and engaging with it again because I remember how it felt to write it. And I was, and I think I've always had a tendency to take myself a little too seriously. But I'm
Yeah,
glad that you can giggle about it though, because I think it's very healthy.
You
yeah,
can
I
mock my
weirdly
juvenilia all you want. Feel free. It's silly and I know it.
I love it.
But the Mercy Brown I thought was the historic novel maybe, and that
That
you've always had a fascination for the character.
Yeah, the Mercy Brown novel I would like to return to, but that's a bit different because that's finished.
Oh,
I
you
mean,
did finish it. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that's like finished. We just weren't able to sell that one because people were like, "What is this exactly? Is it horror? Is it historical horror? Is it coming of age? Is it literary? Is it a thriller?" And I was like, "Well, I don't really know. It could be all those things."
A big old slipstring, darling.
Yes. But yeah, that one's like done. So I could brush that one off because I feel like that would just be reworking something that exists. I don't have to like rekindle the passion. It's just to like
You just
make
get
an
to
idea work. Yeah.
edit
Yeah.
it deliciously.
Right. My favorite part.
Maybe that's a year where, like Stephen King, you'll suddenly have two novels out because you've got one in the can. There's what was that? Was it It was maybe
Yeah,
Bag of Bones where the character always has like he hadn't written for a while, but he'd had some years where he wrote double or triple, and so he
yes,
kept
I like
but he was
that.
on his last manuscript. I liked Bag of Bones. For all of its problems, it was one of my favorites. Okay, Christa, we want to hear you read from How to Fake a Haunting, which is a great title, I think.
Thank you. So I'll give like a super brief background because this is like chapter 30 something, so I'm gonna not start at the beginning.
Perfect.
The book is about Lainey Taylor, who's unable to divorce her alcoholic husband without sharing or maybe even losing custody of her daughter due to his influential family and solid job. So she enlists her best friend Adelaide to help drive him away by staging a haunting in their home. But might that haunting spiral just a bit out of control? Okay, so at this point, Adelaide and Lainey have returned to Lainey's house in the dead of night after Lainey's Callum did something terrible. Lainey leaves the house with her daughter. They go back and they're going to stage like the mother of all hauntings because they're like, we need to get him out. So they've just entered the house in the dead of night. Callum is like sleeping, passed out, drunk, and they've just set everything up. And I'm gonna pick it up from there. I positioned myself at the center of the room above the island in the kitchen and took the last 2 items out of my pack. Mere seconds after that, I saw movement in the frame of Adelaide's phone. The weak candlelight from the island was joined by the bright overheads. Callum stood in his boxers, eyes wide and watery, his hand still on the light switch. He stared at the Amazon Echo on the coffee bar as if a wild animal had gotten into the kitchen. 30 seconds passed, then another. The song was nearing its conclusion when Callum finally lurched toward the smart speaker and ripped the cord from its side. The house was plunged into silence. No, not silence. I could hear Callum's heavy breathing through the phone. He turned, and for the first time since coming downstairs, noticed the flickering candles on the island. I said a silent thank you that I'd set the timer 2 minutes later than I'd initially planned. Callum was blowing out the final candle when the television blared to life in the living room. Again, the twangy, eerie guitar notes floated from the speaker and through the floorboards simultaneously. Where the hell do I know that song from? Why is it always the one Adelaide chooses to play? Callum whirled toward the hall, but I saw the terror on his face before he turned. A second later, the screen went dark. However long it took Callum to get to the living room and find the remote was as long as Adelaide would have to relight the candles, trip the sensor on the object in the playroom, and return to the pantry without being seen. 10 seconds passed, then another. The song stopped as abruptly as it started. A jerk of movement, and I was looking through the crack again. Callum was standing in the entrance to the kitchen, staring at the relit candles with abject horror. A guttural chanting started from the playroom. Whispers layered on screams, layered on whispers, the language indecipherable, not loud enough to hear from a floor away, but chilling enough through the phone speaker alone. Adelaide tilted the screen just as Callum batted at the light switch beside the playroom, but the angle wasn't quite right. I knew Callum was face to face with one of 2 identical, recordable teddy bears with light-up eyes, the other of which was in my backpack, but I'd yet to see them for myself. Adelaide had programmed the bears with a track from some horror sound effects channel on YouTube, set the track to begin after 45 seconds of silence, and wrapped the stuffed animals in black towels to cover their sensors, all without me being present. From the sound of it, bear number 1 had done its job. I was so fixated on Callum's high-pitched scream, I almost forgot to employ the magnets. I lifted the 2 high-powered cylinders, pulled the protective caps off their north poles, and slammed them into the floor. The sound of the 6 candles with magnetized bottoms shooting up to the ceiling below was like firecrackers. I left the magnets in place while I listened to Callum's continued shouts of fear, then turned, placed 1 foot on the footboard of Cal's bed, and used my body weight to knock first one magnet, then the other onto its side, severing the attraction to the South Pole magnets in the candles. I heard them crash to the ground, but there was no time to waste. I recapped the magnets, stuffed them into the fat pack with my phone, and pulled out the towel-wrapped bear. I sat the stuffed animal at the center of the bed, pulled off the towel, and stepped back. As I waved my hand in front of its face to activate the sensor, I got my first look at the bear. It had fuzzy chestnut fur, pink paw pads, and a pink satin ribbon around its neck. It was both the most nondescript stuffed bear in the world and so familiar that I choked on the memory. Every decibel of sound in the house whooshed away, replaced by a long rising wail in my brain. It's not the same bear. It's not the same bear. A brown bear with pink paws is probably the first thing that comes up in a Google search. This rationale didn't help. Neither did the fact that, while Adelaide knew about the bear's connection to what I'd done, I'd never told her what it looked like. But you told her where you buried it. Might she have dug it up? I pushed the thought away. I don't know how long I would have stood there, staring at the past, the blood rushing in my temples, if Callum's footsteps on the stairs hadn't roused me from my stupor. I spun from the bear, grabbed my backpack, and sprinted into the hallway. I slid over the last 2 feet of hardwood and onto the carpet in Bee's room just as Callum cleared the final step. I heard the bear on Cal's bed rise into hellish chanting as I lifted myself into the attic. Now I just had to hope that wretched thing was enough to drive Callum out of his bedroom and into the bathroom. I moved fast to the peephole, found the rock attached to the fishing line and unwound it, then leaned forward and placed one eye against the peephole. Callum practically fell into the bathroom, slammed the door, flipped on the light, and stood with his hands on his knees, panting and crying and swearing. "What the fuck?" he cried. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck is happening? What the fuck is happening to me? The only things that existed were the twine in my fingers and the position of my husband below me in the bathroom. He hadn't looked up yet, hadn't looked anywhere but at the floor as he tried to catch his breath and come to terms with self-lighting candles and televisions that turned on and off of their own, with floating objects and talking toys. He straightened, still looking down, wiping tears from his face. He dug his fists into his cheeks and groaned, rocking back and forth on his heels. Come on, motherfucker, I thought. Look up. Look up and get the final shock of the evening. And then he did. I yanked the fishing line in a perfect trajectory along the bathroom ceiling, pulling the adhesive from the 1/4 mm thick membrane and exploding the bloated bag of pig's blood like a firework against a stark and starless sky. Blood shot out over the bathroom mirror, the vanity, the sink, in a trail of brilliant crimson bursts. The shock of red against white was like waking after an extended monochromatic dream to a bright and blazing sun. I saw Callum's face for a split second before the blood covered the entire surface of the mirror. It was enough. Enough that I couldn't imagine the haunting needing to continue beyond tonight. Callum fled the bathroom as if it were on fire. I listened to his footsteps on the stairs. In another moment, his car peeled out of the driveway. Blood continued to drip down the mirror as I watched, hypnotized. And maybe I was hypnotized, still pressed to the peephole like I was, because in the next instant I saw something that couldn't possibly be. I saw it in the mirror, in the thin slick of clinging blood. A figure, hunched and hooded, scrubbing blood from between her fingers like Lady Macbeth. The figure froze. It lifted its head to reveal the rippling pond, the shattered glass, the staticky screen where there should have been a face.
Brava, brava, bellissima. We have a question from our audience. We have also a comment too. Adelaide bears watching is a comment. And we've got, I love a physics lab based haunting.
Yeah, I was that's gonna be one of my questions, but yeah.
Our Lady Jack asks, how much fun did you have imagining the logistics for how to fake this haunting? I think that was what Carlos was going to ask. So talk about that process.
So before writing this book, yeah, like anybody that's read at least my first two novels, or even one of them, would say like, I mean, all of my research is always like, I'm kind of a big nerd. Like, I love houses and like spooky, historical homes and historical literary figures. There's like Edgar Allan Poe and Sarah Helen Whitman in my last novel were like the things I did the most research in. For the Block Island book, it was like Whitehall and the Searles family, which was a real thing that I incorporated into the plot, and then Gothic literature, because this was like a meta-textual Gothic, exploration of the Gothic, kind of a la Scream. So for this book, I got to research stuff like
Like spiritualism?
Let me just put it to you this way. I'll tell you some of like the email threads that exist in the folder for this. One of them is with a lovely man from Critter Depot, where you can buy black soldier fly larvae and hatch an Amityville horror worth amount of flies in your house in order to like spread them along the windowsills and create like that opening haunting scene where like flies are everywhere.
Wait. But what is this guy's job? Is he like
so
fly
Critter
breeder?
Depot?
Yeah.
Critter Depot is a place online where you can buy like insects in bulk for presumably for like chicken. Like you can feed your. I actually was sort of like, should I have already known this and be feeding my chickens fly larvae? I didn't know this was a thing. But you can buy like grasshoppers and stuff for like snakes, but it's you can buy it in bulk so that you can buy like larger quantities, as opposed to like if you go to a pet store, like there's typically not enough of, they sell
yeah,
like
they don't sell a lot of flies at the pet store.
like larva, insect larva, right. Another weird email thread I had going was with another man who I wanted like Adelaide. I don't want to spoil too much for people, but like Adelaide and Lainey also use like animal carcasses and dead animals to sort of like stage different parts of the haunting. And so I wrote an email to this guy that I like spent a lot of time making sure I didn't come across as like some budding serial killer. Like I was like,
right.
nuts. I got to explain myself. But I wanted to know if somebody, because there's a difference between exterminators for like mice and rats and cockroaches, and then like animal removal. Like it's a
wildlife control. Yeah.
Exactly, wildlife removal. So I posed him this whole question and like was like, if somebody wanted just like carcasses from you, is that like a thing that you would do? And I got the most unexpected response back where he was like, oh, I get emails for this like every week almost. Like you wouldn't believe how many budding jewelry makers on Etsy like want animal parts. And I was like, oh, that was not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
I myself have bought ethically sourced bone jewelry from Etsy. Yeah. I can see it.
Really interesting. So serial killers out there, if you want to fake your identity, Etsy.
Right.
Jewelry makers on Etsy.
Just make a cool shop, open a shop. Yeah. But then like a lot of my other research was just like, because I figured if you put yourself into the minds of these characters, like if I were one of these characters and I was having to do the research to actually put on this haunting, I mean, despite all of my Ouija boards, I've never actually found any real ghosts. So you don't have anything to go by. But who are the best people that we know that fake hauntings all the time? Horror film directors.
Movie people, yeah.
So I was like, all right, like so I rewatched like Poltergeist. I tried to think of like the best haunted house movies that were like really showcasing what I was trying to do in like a single location. And it was
Did you watch like making of documentaries to see how the filmmakers did it as well?
I like YouTubed as much as I tried to find like behind the scenes stuff, and I just like looked up and like Googled and read Wikipedia articles about and then I talked to like an actual plumber, like my husband's friend at work got a lot of plumbing experience, and I I had to incorporate into the plot the fact that like you cannot feasibly run pig's blood through, like I wanted the blood to come out of the shower originally, and there was like I could pull out my notebook and tell you all the reasons why you're like not feasibly going to be able to do that. And at the time I was sort of like, oh man, that's such a bummer, but
Yeah.
I just like figured out how to
It would
work
make
that
a great
into the plot.
listicle article, though. You know, if you're trying to promote the book, 10 reasons why you can't run pig blood through your shower.
Yeah. How to really fake a haunting, but also how not to.
Yes. And I think because you haven't gotten far enough yet, and I don't want to spoil it, but I also like love talking about this so much in terms of the research because
Christa, I'm not, you can't actually spoil things for me. I am a Spicer girl. Anything you tell me will just make me want to read it more. I am at the part, like, I've met the wildlife control person. They've started chatting with him. They've infiltrated the house the first time with a ladder. So, like, I've got, what I didn't know is I'm not at the point yet where I was like, ooh, Adelaide bears watching, which I now am. And that, the hint with the bear, I didn't know that Lainey herself might be culpable in something, which does make it more interesting, like, because obviously she used to drink and then doesn't anymore. I think that's maybe something.
Yeah, it's less connected to that and more connected to something that's like eating at her throughout. Yeah, you'll get more into that.
And then I had a feeling that the mirror has something to do with something. Like, I think the mirror, I was like, if it's a new house, the house itself isn't haunted. Like, you bring that up immediately, but like, are there objects in the house or people that are haunted?
Ooh, okay,
so
I'm liking where your head's at. I'm liking that.
While we're asking quick questions, though, I did notice that you have a Lainey, and Claire, you have a Lainey. Were you cross-pollinating a little bit, like maybe thinking like, oh, that's a name I like, I'll put it in my book?
So no, even though I love, like, I think the name Lainey in your world, in your
is spelled differently.
Yes, but it also it's perfect. Like, Miss Lainey is so, like, there's so much more to it than just Lainey. My reasoning for using Lainey, it was just at the time, both my mother and my daughter were like obsessively listening to this one Lainey Wilson song. So I just was like, all right, Lainey is going to be the name of this character because I don't know. I think I'd been like typing Lainey into Pandora to play this one song for weeks on end right when I was about to name this character. And I was just like, Lainey is a cool name. I can't get away from the name Lainey. Might as well just write it into the book.
That's right.
I noticed she's reading her daughter a fable at some point, and the character in the fable is named Eleanor, which I know you're very fond of because of Shirley Jackson and other reasons. But I was like, I think that's an Easter egg, and that made me wonder how many more Easter eggs was in this book. Just like names of people or things you like, or things that you snuck in.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I know there's the epilogue. You'll have fun with the epilogue.
All right.
It was like the last like page I threw a bunch in.
Before we move too far away from the actual science behind all of the mischief in this book, somebody in the chat, let me just find the person. Titleist Rex asks, how many of these physical elements were, lab tested on a quote friend?
So I was actually really disappointed that I thought about buying magnets and like trying the candle thing myself, but it was really difficult. I couldn't like figure out size. It just was like too much of a rabbit hole. I made myself pull back, so I was like, you're just gonna have to kind of wing this one.
Yeah. And
I mean, like, feasibly you can get magnets that are strong enough to, a pillar candle that's I kind of like ideally I had wanted to like figure out the strength of a magnet for the weight of a typical pillar candle, but then I was like, that's one of those things that's probably going to work its way out of the actual prose of the book anyway.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. No. Like, and you didn't have the motivation of wanting to murder somebody to really keep you going.
Right. Like, direction. I was like, I think that part can stay off the page. But the one thing I do want to mention really quickly, because I don't know, I'm dying to know if you guys have heard of this before. Have either of you heard of a Prince Rupert's drop?
Rupert's drop? No.
So was Rupert Victoria's son? Is that right?
So it's, hold on.
Or maybe not.
Bookmarked.
That was Albert. No, Albert was her husband.
I bet the chat knows. I'm sure it's like some terrible...
you know what? I bet Our Lady Jack knows, if anyone does.
So it's named for Prince Rupert of the Rhine, a 17th century
Okay.
prince who brought this to England in 1660 and presented it to King Charles II. He did not discover them, but he like knew of them and they were cool, and he basically brought them to be like, look at this cool thing. So
Dutch tears.
I wanted I had rewatched Poltergeist, and I wanted so terribly to have at least one scene where it seemed potentially like there was like poltergeistic. I don't think that's a word, but I made it a word.
I like it. It's a good one.
Poltergeistic activity, and I wanted Callum to be holding a glass that would shatter in his hand. And I was like, how can I do that? And I have to like thank the writing research gods for smiling down on me that day, because I must have just typed in like the most I think I typed in like how to make a glass. I probably couldn't even redo this. I just so happened to type the right combination of words in the right order where I stumbled upon this Prince Rupert's drop. And what it is this technique of glass blowing where you create a drop that looks like a tadpole. And it's done, something about it, it's done with like temperature, like the way you cool really quickly or heat very quickly.
It looks like drop it in cold water.
Yes. And what it creates is this tadpole shape, and the head of the tadpole is strong enough to withstand like sniper bullets.
Whoa!
But if you so much as like scrape the tail and break the glass of the tail even slightly, the whole thing explodes.
Whoa.
Which is,
Wow.
I still find like endlessly cool. So, and there's like YouTube videos of people like, and maybe I shouldn't say sniper because I'm terrible at like guns, but there was some sort of like high powered assault, right? Like a shotgun. You can hit this thing with like a very serious bullet right at the head of the glass and nothing happens.
That's so
and
cool.
You break the tail and it's like a shower of glass.
And then you somehow use this technology to make a glass?
Yeah, so I have her order a Prince Rupert drop because you can order them online, which is another like crazy thing to me. Like I'm like, you could like explode, you could accidentally like detonate a bomb in your kitchen with this thing. And you can just order it off the internet, but don't worry, it comes like nestled in, padding and stuff. Like, could you imagine if one of those things exploded in like a mail truck? It's crazy to me.
Wow.
Anyway, you can order them offline. Yeah. So they order one, and then, it sounds ridiculous when you just like repeat something like this, but I spent a very lot of time ensuring that like all of these ends were tied up. Essentially, they figure out a way to sort of, first they introduce boba straws. Like they have them she has them in the house conceivably for like the little girl to use, and she gets him used to using them, and they're always there, and he's always grabbing one. And then they get a bobo straw with a concertina hinge, like what's the little hinge when they hinge?
Right.
And the tail is right where the hinge is. So when he puts the tail down on the boba straw, the Prince Rupert's drop explodes and the glass explodes.
That is pure evil. I also love that that's called a concertina, like an accordion, a concertina accordion. It's amazing. I never knew that term. So that is something you can order off, not the dark web, just the web.
No, you can. Right? I have it bookmarked. Like it's all like I could do all of these things. It's crazy.
That is amazing. Why do we even need a dark web? Like I feel like there's plenty of evil on the normal web.
Because like cute recordable bears that you can make fake a haunting and awesome glassware aren't actually dark web. It's when you're ordering livers, Carlos, you need a dark web. Like human livers.
Well, I guess human livers, but other livers are.
Yeah, anybody can order regular livers from the dark web.
They might be at Critter Depot with the larva.
I was going to say, yeah. But since you're talking about the bear, I thought of two specific pieces of technology kind of combined. A, the Teddy Ruxpin, but then B, the Furby. Like the little round things that would like copy your speech. is this a different thing that you had in mind, or did you make a whole?
Yeah, no, you can get bears that you can record on to, like, I don't know, tell your child you love them when you're not there. I don't know what you would do. I find them quite creepy.
We made one for Cassandra Caw, Carlos.
Oh, that's true. We did. You're right.
You know, you can go do a Build-A-Bear at the mall, and then they, for a little extra, they let you record a little message. So Carlos and I made up a little scary rhyme, and we used creepy little voices, and we spoke in unison so that Cassandra Caw would always have a haunted bear that they would love so much. It's basically, it's not to haunt Cassandra. It's more like, we are bears and we'll eat your enemies. Something like that.
And it raises the pitch of your voice, and we both said it at the same time in a weird harmony, so it's quite awesome. Very proud of that.
I mean, there you go. You've done your own recordable haunted teddy bear.
Yeah.
Carlos, I have to pay attention to the pig's blood thing just in case I ever need to bathe you in crimson. If I have to incarnadine you.
To that. That is not something you need to pay attention to.
I have to read it very carefully. You'd like it. You like pranks.
Yeah, Christa, just do not email her that critter dude.
Okay, fair enough. I was just going to say something about the
more research,
but I forgot. It slipped my mind.
So, cloaca. What am I? Okay, so Newport. Yes, that's what I wanted to. Okay, I've been this last week recording the audiobook for Dark Breaker, so Newport has been very much on my mind. And of course, you're doing not a non-fantastical version of Newport, and you're doing contemporary, neither of which I did. So all of my research that I did was like turn of the century, whereas you had to do all of that research for the mansions themselves, but also like the contemporary, how these places are run. I was so impressed because I know how much, nobody casually has that knowledge unless they work in historic interpretation of mansions. So like the titles of like directors and organizers and how they work and who rents them for what galas and like what makes the verisimilitude of the situation that your main character finds herself in. I think I remember Jess saying that you all went to the Breakers at least together. What else did you do in Newport to help you write this novel in this place?
I went a few times, and I basically just spent like a really long time on the Preservation Society of Newport County website, like digging into the like I cyber stalked the shit out of like everybody that works for the Preservation Society of Newport County just to see what kind of like backgrounds led to, and it's weird too, right? Because it's not typical museum curation, but it is like most of them have like the same. So once I realized that most of the people, like the main core group of the Preservation Society, have similar backgrounds to like quote unquote regular museum and historical curators. I have a friend who has a master's degree. I'm gonna probably butcher what exactly his master's degree is in, but Joshua Rex, who's like a wonderful writer as well, and just an unbelievable historian and knows a ton about museums and historical preservation. I just kind of like anything that was like lingering, I asked him and he helped me with.
Did you get to talk to anybody from that area, or you really kind of avoided it?
Well, I talked to a few people who lived in Newport for like some geographical things. Another writer friend, Lauren Daniels, her parents have lived in the area for years. Lauren herself lives in Australia now, but she grew up in the area. So like because you know, it's always like I've been to Newport a million times, but it's always different when you live there. Like there's stuff that you can assume about a place that isn't true.
Did you go walking in the neighborhoods and like pick out the house or like the area where your fake house would be and be like, it has to be about here in order to have this view of the other houses?
So I did that because necessity of like the timeline that I was writing on. I did that stuff on like Google Street, Google Map, like I
Google
did,
Earth, yeah.
But then I went and did a drive-through to make sure I hadn't like skewed anything important.
Are there actual woods in Newport? I was like, as they're hiking through the woods, it's like, I don't remember much about like woods or woody areas.
So there are less, I mean, I'm sure maybe somewhere in the area that I was looking in, maybe not so much. There are more like maybe thick copses, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Of trees. I will say, and I probably shouldn't admit this because, but the truth of the matter is, originally the house was set in Shelter Harbor. The book was set in Shelter Harbor, Rhode Island. Shelter Harbor is like that little community as you're heading out of Westerly and almost getting into Charlestown on Route
Okay.
1.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was originally set in Shelter Harbor, and my family actually lived a year in Shelter Harbor when my parents built a house back when we were in high school, and when the house was being built, we had sold our previous house and we rented in Shelter Harbor. And for whatever reason, I don't know, there was like, like golf course, there was a whole bunch of things that were like making me think that that was a good place to do it. And then ultimately I was like, nah, no, not the right like vibe, not the right, it didn't have all the ingredients that I
Yeah.
needed to bake this cake. So I moved it. But the placement of like where they park their cars and where Adelaide parks her car and then goes up this, it was never really like, I probably should have never called it like woods. It was always more of kind of like maybe a couple lots worth of like empty lots.
Right. That's still woods. I mean,
Yeah,
anything
so I
bigger
just
than a
kind of
backyard.
figured there's gotta be someplace like a couple empty lots in Newport around the area somewhere.
I love it. I love it. I imagined you like going on like excursions and surveys, but of course you're, a working woman and a mother. Like, who has time for that?
I know I did go, like I said, I did go back to the mansions a few times and I love taking tons of pictures, not necessarily because like there's only one chapter in the whole book that's actually set inside one of the mansions, but I still love to like look at pictures that I've taken and like pull back the feel of being there just to write more like evocative scenes and like just to pull in the vibe of, so I
Yeah.
spent a lot of time just sort of like scrolling through all my Newport Mansion pictures.
I love it. You definitely have to go to Europe for the next one.
I know. Well,
So, Christa, this is your third book now. This is now you are thoroughly ensconced in horror writing. You're publishing anthologies and short stories as well, and you're doing the readings and stuff. My question to you is, so like now you're really sort of like getting into the vibe of like generating new horrors every year or two for a readership. And I guess like for this particular book, what horror gifts are you giving to your horror readers? That is like, what sort of presents are you giving them, or what do you hope that they get out of it that you think is like, well, here's a little something just for you that you might not have gotten out of other books you've been reading lately?
that's a great question. My full answer to that would completely spoil the book.
Yeah, don't do that.
But I wanted to write a quote unquote haunted house story where the people were influencing things more than the actual house. Like I wanted to kind of flip the tradition. I mean, I don't even really think there's a traditional haunted house narrative anymore because so many writers are doing so many cool things with, I mean, I have a couple, but I'm Play Nice by Rachel Harrison this year, and I love the September House. Oh God, I always forget. Hold on. Just September. Carissa Orlando, that book is fabulous. I was so glad I read her book after I finished basically all of my book because there's an element of like, is this real or is it not real? Is this real or is this not real? Like a kind of boomerang of going back and forth with that. But yeah, I wanted to. I guess I'll answer it this way, and I'll try not to make this too long because I know we're starting to approach the end of the time.
This is your interview. Answer it as you like.
I years ago worked at a methadone clinic. And one of the things, so I'm fully a big proponent for methadone treatment. It's like a harm reduction treatment for opioid addiction. It's a synthetic opiate that people take every day for those that aren't aware of how it works. But it, in the moment, is like sometimes so incredibly necessary and the only treatment that's going to work for people. But when I was a counselor at a mental health, at a methadone clinic, one of the things that I was sort of like gobsmacked by, for lack of a better word, was for the people who were like 10, 15, 18 years in this treatment that had built these like utterly wonderful, like fully in recovery lives that from the outside was the exact same as somebody that had built some amazing life in recovery, but not with methadone. Whenever they tried to get off methadone, they would taper for a while and be okay. And then, like, it would happen like at the flip of a switch. When they would get low enough on their dose, it would like throw people back. It felt like time travel. Like, all of a sudden, their brain that they thought was like healed and recovered and like quote unquote normal would be catapulted backwards in time to where it was almost like none of the work that they had done had even happened.
Oh.
And it was
man.
this like really awful thing to see, where it's kind of like the worst. I mean, it's really, in my opinion, maybe like the only con, but it's a huge con to like, it's, to me, it's like building a foundation of recovery on this incredible, building a house of recovery on this like incredibly rotten, hole riddled foundation that eventually is going to crumble beneath you. And it just was like, I just like never forgot seeing these people. It was so much worse than seeing the people whose lives were wrecked, but like knew they were wrecked because they were coming in off of active addiction. It was like some cruel trick. And I thought about it a lot. And there's like other stuff that I've written that's kind of played with the idea of, like, I wrote, Claire, you mentioned it in my biography, that Through the Looking Glass and Straight into Hell was the story I wrote. And it was kind of similar themes where it's like, essentially the story is sort of this like Black Mirror-esque, like addiction treatment, but as like virtual reality recovery simulators. So you can like see different recovery paths and whether or not like what you do, what decisions you make and what choices you make based on what the simulation shows you. So I just like really, I don't know if like is the right word, but I'm really fascinated by this idea of like, I almost feel like people love to talk about the butterfly effect and like you do this one little thing and you have no idea of the repercussions that it could have. And I feel like that methadone treatment example is such a weird thing where it's almost like you can pinpoint the exact moment that the butterfly's wings had this whole like downstream effect that like affected your whole life. And there's not too many times in life where you can have like a whole, I mean, you know, sure, everybody's different. Maybe there are more, but like to me, there's not too many times in life where you can like pinpoint the exact moment that like you really wish you had made another decision, because you could have potentially built the exact same life in recovery if you just suffered a little more in the beginning. And that's a shitty thing to say because I've also been in that position of like needing to decide which you can't have the foresight. We don't have the virtual reality recovery simulator. So you have to just make the best decision in the moment. But it feels really hard to not like think that that's the moment of regret. So this is a very long way of saying like this book, I wanted to explore the idea of feeling like you've made the right decision and then finding out that it was not the right decision and then maybe potentially having the opportunity to make a different decision. Like it's almost in a really weird way. It's kind of the same thing as my recovery simulator story, but in a different, like more ghosty way. It's like, what are the possible ways and what can you do with the knowledge of like seeing where your choices could lead you down the line?
It's so cool, Christa. I remember Sharon Shin telling me we all have something we write about, and she said, I write about like waifs and strays, runaways, found family. And she looked at me, she's like, you write about death and what comes after. And I was like, no, I don't. This was like even before the necromancy books, right? This was like during Bone Swans. And I was like, I have to up my game. I have to do something different. But I like that what you're doing is like regret, choices, and still the possibility that even though you've been locked in a path for so far and you haven't been able to escape it, that then here's a chance for escape, this time it could be different.
Right sort of that like monkey's paw, like right,
but instead of like monkey's paw or butterfly effect, you have the Prince Rupert's drop. You know, when you scrape the tadpole tail, is there any way to bring the drop back together?
Yep, right? Maybe.
Oh, we love it. Oh, Krista, this was so fun. Before we let you go, what have you read lately? You mentioned a few. What else have you read lately that you've been liking? And have you played any games lately that you've loved?
So I read, and I have to give a shout out to Clay McLeod Chapman. So I read Clay McLeod Chapman's Shiny Happy People and did an in conversation event with him the other night. And just like his young adult novel is very, very fun. But Clay, a month prior, I was at a different event with him, and he got asked this question, and he said that he doesn't know why more people are not talking about Old Soul by Susan Barker. And I read it, and it like blew my mind. Like, it was so good, and I instantly finished it and like ran to Instagram to write to him and be like, "You are so right. Like, why aren't more people talking about this book?" So I've been recommending it to everyone. It's kind of like literary horror, but there's some cosmic stuff going on, and it's beautifully written, and this like super intricate tapestry of like conflict or not like intersecting plot lines and characters. It's just beautiful and really creepy and downright in one part. And Claire, you know, like Jess and Julia and all these people always tease me about like not getting scared. I actually like feel like there's a moment in this book where it was broad daylight and I was just like driving in my car and I felt like genuine, like the whole chills went up my, I hate writing the line chills went up my spine because I always feel like it's so cliche, but like chills went up my spine. I was like, that is so creepy.
And
So
it's called, we want
fantastic.
to reiterate, Old Soul by Susan Barker.
Yes. It
Okay,
means like old
that is so
soul. Yeah.
fabulous. And
So
you
make sure.
play games with your daughter. Do you play games in groups or with adults or by yourself or no time for games these days?
So we actually have been playing. I was gonna say that like we've been playing a ton of games in my house, but with a 5-year-old. So we play Sorry all the time.
Oh,
Classic,
yeah.
classic Sorry.
Yeah.
We have like full on like it's just funny. There's lots of shit talking over Sorry in this house. We play lots of like fun, you know, like all the old classics like Guess Who, and
Yeah.
my husband just um brought home this fun game called Collide with a K, and it's just like it's a magnet game that you have to try to like place the magnets without them. I don't know. Again, it's like for kids.
We should get them
And
Dice Miner, Carlos,
Yeah.
because Nell's about at the age.
I
we
think
play like
2
Uno
years.
and you
Yeah.
know kind of. We do have a Goosebumps board game that's very fun.
Oh,
Oh,
that's cool. I
nice.
didn't know there was one for the nieces and nephews. Yes, I
Well,
will keep it in mind.
a point. There are two Goosebumps board games,
Okay.
and one of them is absolutely terrible.
But
And
one
the
is
other
good.
one, so the one that's good is called Goosebumps the board game.
Okay, okay.
And
Goosebumps, the
the
board game.
other one that's not good is called Goosebumps the game.
Ah, I see. Very good.
Dang.
Goosebumps, the board game has the kind of like marionette, like,
It has
uh,
Slappy the ventriloquist dummy on the
yes,
front.
perfect, perfect.
And it's a bit like Candyland, but like a little more advanced, and it brings in a lot of like fun R.L. Stein Easter eggs.
That's good to know because my one of my nephews and my niece are very into Goosebumps, and so it's a perfect idea for them for the holidays. Carlos, anything you've been reading and playing lately that you want to share?
Well, I got to interview Sonia Manzano, who was Maria on Sesame Street for 44 years. So, like, it was part of the book fest here, and it was just this amazing opportunity. But I read her biography, Becoming Maria. It's fabulous. Like, you know, Maria,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
is sort of like very well known. Like, if you are my age, you certainly would know her face. But she's a prose stylist. Like, the first line of the memoir begins, "My mother is cooking my father," and it's a memoir. So
Wow.
Wow.
like and basically like the drunken father is in the bathtub with mom pouring hot water over his head, trying to sober him up because he's just hit her, and they're both trying to play nice in front of the cops so that there aren't any trouble with the cops and stuff. So extremely like
Wow.
intense and gritty and very like, you know, very much like, New York in the 50s and 60s and stuff. So very powerful memoir. I would recommend it strongly to people, especially if you want that sort of like gritty reality sort of thing.
Yeah, I just added it to my Amazon cart. I mean, I'm not going to buy it on Amazon. I'm going to go to Martin House and buy it, but I will forget otherwise.
Yeah,
and I had
yeah.
Amazon up because, and I already forgot. What was I supposed to send you, Claire? Oh, the,
Pig's blood.
no, not the pig's blood.
Amazon.
The sunlight lamp.
Pig's
The
blood.
alarm clock that wakes you up with
the one that you
sunlight
like.
and birds, yes.
Yeah, Titleist Rex says livers. That's right. That's right. Dark Amazon. Oh, wait.
It's all dark, yeah.
And I, of course, have been reading Christa Carmen's How to Fake a Haunting and loving it so much. Carlos and I got to play some games with a friend recently, so we broke out League of the Lexicon, which is like Trivial Pursuit, only it's all etymologies for words. It's all vocab nerddom. It is so fun. And apparently there's an expansion pack with slang. And of course, we always play Dice Miner with whoever will sit still long enough to play with us. And we've been play testing some new games that Carlos has been inventing every time he blinks. So that's been really fun. There's an RPG and then there's a card game. And so we've just been play testing in our little spare time. It's been glorious.
Yeah, it'd be nice to play with you two again, though. Like, it'd be nice to head up to Westerly and just have a little game night.
I was just going to say, I still count the night that, like, you two and Julia and Moss and Jess and I played Mysterium.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was so much fun.
Well, Christa, Carlos's sabbatical is coming up, and we hope to visit Westerly a lot more often and to see you and to play with you and play Negocios and Finales with you and everything. It will be so beautiful.
I will count down the days.
And we have kept you longer than we meant to, and you chat. I'm sorry, we kept you longer than we meant to, but we know we hardly get to talk to Christa. We love her so much.
Exactly.
But have a wonderful night, everyone, and thank you so much for coming.
And thank you especially to Christa, How to Fake a Haunting, available now.
Thank
Available
you.
now.
Thank you both so much.
Bye-bye.
All right, good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night. Thank you.